Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Itai Sharfi, Cal State Fullerton professor. Today we're going to do something new and exciting. Today we're going to do mock behavioral questions, but in a very special format. Together with me is Sonal and Hetal, both students at Cal State Fullerton. And what we're going to do is we're going to have them playing the role of an interviewer and an interviewee, and then switch on behavioral questions. The value of this is to show that practicing as an interviewer as well at mock and as an interviewee, how much value it can add to later performing those interviews when you go for software engineering role. Sonal, would you like to introduce yourself first?
So, hi everybody. My name is Sonal, and I'm a master's student at California State University Fullerton, majoring in computer science. And I'm excited to be a participant in this mock interview and hope that this experience helps all of you guys in your journey to securing your next job.
Thank you very much. Hetal, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so hi everybody, my name is Hetal Tiwari. I am a graduate student at Cal State University Fullerton, majoring in computer science. And yeah, I would like to thank Professor Ite to provide us with this opportunity. And yeah, I am definitely looking forward to learning something out of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for being brave and volunteering for that and helping all the other students that are subscribed on the channel to see how it is, and also to see that it goes well and there is nothing to worry about. This will go well, because if it's not going to go well, nobody will see this recording. So by seeing it, you know it went well. So before maybe we start, we'll talk about a bit how it's going to work. So I will explain. This is the first time you ever do it. Have you ever done mock interviews in the past for behavioral? No? Okay.
This is my first time doing a mock interview, yeah.
I'll explain what it is, what's the purpose of it. And as part of it, I'll also take one of you, the interviewer, explain the question. We are going to go through some items that might be worth to look at, the response of the other person and how that's going to work out. In the end of the interview, we're going to do a debrief. In that debrief, the person that was interviewed will share how do they think it went, and then the interviewer will share what they noticed as part of the response, and then we're going to switch. And that will be quite interesting, because you could see you're going to have a crash course and moving very quickly between the first interview and the second. So you will see how gaining experience could potentially be quite valuable. Okay. So maybe a bit about behavioral interviews. So software engineering is a very collaborative role. In most companies, rarely you would work by yourself. You need to work with other teams. You need to work with other people. There is a conflict. There is teams. People need to know that you're able to contribute as part of kind of the greater product role, and manage yourself through that as you're encountering obstacles, which everybody are. So the behavioral is based on previous experience. The idea is that future way of how you will react to a situation, your future performance, is correlated very strongly with what you've done in the past. So the idea is that this is not supposed to be like a theoretical question. Sometimes there are theoretical questions. This is supposed to be questions that happened in the past. What people usually do, you haven't done it now, I know, but what people would usually do is to prepare a couple of kind of canned stories, a bunch of stories about conflicts that they encounter, and then try to answer that as a STAR schema, just to be clear. Sorry, STAR response. STAR is situation, just explain what the situation was. What were you trying to do? Like, what was the target? What was the action that you took? And in the end, what was the result? That's usually how the responses would be. So with that, we're not going to use a breakout room. we are going to have one of you silencing the audio so you cannot hear the training for the other person regarding the question. Then when I'm going to do a thumb up, you can set the audio back again, and then we'll start the interview process. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So Sonal will go first as an interviewer. That just means, Hetal, that you will gain this experience and you will see how it looks from the other side after yours. So yes, so I'll talk with Sonal, and once I do like this, you can join back our call. Make sense?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So
Okay.
now you can mute us.
Okay.
Okay. So Sonal, so
I can't hear you.
sorry, I think I muted myself.
Okay.
So this is how it works. So the way that it works is I'm going to, I think Hetal dropped by accident. That's okay. She's probably going to come back. The way that it works is this. I'm going to give you a question, then I'm going to give you some things to look for. But again, this is your opinion. And in the end, I'll describe how the process works. Okay?
Okay.
So the first thing to know is that's your question. Your question would be, can you describe a situation where you believed a technical approach or solution should be implemented differently than what was proposed by your team or lead? The question would be, how did you handle it, the situation, communicate, the need to communicate the perspective, and what was the outcome, okay? So you can, of course, phrase it differently. In the end, it's your question. But the idea is where you believe the technical approach or solution should be implemented differently than what was proposed by your team or lead. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So here's how it usually works, just to explain a bit about the process of it. So the first thing we usually do, like just a quick icebreaker, or like build a report. Sometimes in an interview, it's going to be 5 minutes of kind of tell me about yourself or something like that. We're going to make it a bit softer this time, just because we have less maybe time or need to do that. You know each other already. Then there's going to be the behavioral questions. Now, the behavioral questions, you, of course, ask the behavioral question. This is like open-ended. You make sure the other person understood the question. Then it's very important to listen actively. Like, don't interrupt. This is not about you. This is about them. You listen to them. How did they behave in the past? Because that's the point of the question. Now, when as the other person like finish talking, then you want to ask some follow-up question for clarity. What you are looking for is signals that you understand how this person reacted to that situation across multiple dimensions. Okay? So what are those multiple dimensions? Now, of course, it's really important to take notes, just because sometimes we forget exactly. I assume this could take somewhere about maybe 5-7 minutes, something along those lines. So it's very important to take notes. Okay, now let's talk about what are some things to look for, okay? So you're looking for when this person believed a technical approach or solution should be implemented differently, okay? Now, what are you looking for? So the first thing that you're looking for, so this is again suggestions. Think about a software engineering role. You work in the past in software engineering, but here's maybe a couple of things to look at. The first thing one thing to look at is the analytical thought process of this person, okay? Did they actually evaluate the proposed technical approach? Like, why do they thought that things should be different? Were they able to clearly articulate what the issue was? So that's one thing. The communication skill, right? Not only in this interview, but also were they able to convey the different perspective to the team, right? How did they have done it? Was that respectable? Like, for example, did they wrote a doc of an analysis, or did they communicate that in a meeting, or they just say, no, I don't want to do that, or I don't think that needs to be done? Like, were they able to actually communicate back what the issue with the idea is and do it in a collaborative way?
Okay.
Collaboration, by the way, it's another thing, right? Did they try to understand the initial proposal first? Like, why, what was the trade-off? What is the pros and cons? Many times when a solution comes, there is like some pros and cons. It's not like it's bad, just somebody prioritized something differently. Did they understand why this person, like, or what they tried to prioritize? Or maybe it was just something that they're familiar with, which is also a prioritization, right? This is important because in engineering, like, you want to make sure that this person was open to the perspective of the other person and the alternative approach, okay? A couple of other things to look at is like conflict resolution, right? How do they navigate pushbacks and disagreement? Another thing is like how they work towards like this compromise, how do they done it, okay? Now, that person, and we talked about it initially, is supposed to say STAR, situation, target, action, result. So when we're thinking about result, or this is recommended. So when we're thinking about result, what was the result? Like, did their change were accepted or not? By the way, in both cases, it could be fine. It's more about how this is done. And how did this impact the overall project, okay? Another thing in result is what did they actually learn? Because results could also be an internal growth, right? So did they learn something from this? If it wasn't accepted, like, did they learn? Did they adapt? Were they managed to do something with previous questions? If mistakes were made, were they willing to improve? Are they being like defensive about maybe blaming why their approach was not accepted? Initiative and proactiveness, that's another thing. Does this person show initiatives? They did not agree with something. Okay, so what have they done about it? Okay. Maybe a couple of more things is like, is their approach, it's a problem-solving approach, or maybe more for confrontational? And just in general, going back to the confrontational, you want to make sure that they have some reasonable level of emotional intelligence when facing conflicts.
Okay.
This is just a partial list. I could go on and on and on and on and on. I just put together, I don't know, like, I think it was 8 or something like that. So let's try it out. So what we're going to do is we will call Hetal back. And then we're going to see what do you think about her overall performance, and how would you be an interviewer? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any questions?
No questions. All set.
Let's do it. I'm just going to watch. Hetal.
Okay.
Hi, Hetal.
Hi, Sonal.
Nice to meet you.
Same here. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am a computer science graduate student at California State University Fullerton right now. And I have about 1.5 years of experience as a software developer. I also have some experience of working as a data science intern, since I interned at a few startups while I was doing my undergraduation. And yeah, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much about myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Hetal. It's nice to learn about you.
Thank you.
So can you tell me, or can you describe a time where you had to propose a technical solution that was different from what was advised by your team lead?
Sure. So this was about one of the projects that I did in my previous company, and I guess it was about the kind of tool that we should use for the upcoming deployment, or for the upcoming iteration. And since I was a new trainee, I had very little experience about the kind of work that we were doing and the team dynamics that we had. So, but still, I had a few suggestions about the tool that we should be using. So I suggested using a different tool than what was actually chosen. But I felt that since I had a different kind of training, or maybe I see I see a different perspective to this problem. I felt like I should be vocal about about my opinion and about my views as well. So I decided to present the solution or present the tool that I felt we should be using I guess it was a stand-up call, or it was a meeting that it was just a team meeting. And I just gave like a suggestion to team members to just go over it and just have a look if we can use it. But since the deadline was close, and since we already were working on that tool, the team members decided to work on the tool that they were already using. But I still remember that one of the team members suggested that we will definitely have a look into it next time. And the next time we had the next iteration, they wanted me to explain my perspective towards the problem, the technical and the non-technical aspects of it. And they felt that using the tool that I was suggesting and the tool that they were using, they can integrate it and they can even make it better. So that's how, yeah, that's how it turned out to be.
That's great. What was this tool that you proposed?
I'm not sure if I should be, I mean, I'm not sure if I should disclose that or not, because it was about my previous company. So I'm really sorry. I won't be able to disclose it.
Okay, that's okay. And it sounds like you were successful in proposing your tool, at least for the next time.
Yeah.
Was it actually implemented for your for the next release? Was the tool actually used?
So again, here's a story. I am not sure if it was used or not, because I was then changed. I mean, my project got changed, and I was put to some other team. But I guess they started using it. They integrated and they started using it. But I'm not really sure like how far they got with it. So yeah, in the beginning, I heard of them using the tool that I suggested, but I'm not sure if they continued or not with that.
And during this journey of you proposing your tool, did you receive any pushback or any conflicts that you had to overcome?
I don't remember any major conflicts that I had with my team members. It was the only thing that I felt was since I was a junior and I had very little experience, I was quite intimidated first to even suggest it. But then, since the team members, they were very welcoming, and especially the team lead that I had, he was he always welcomed suggestions from junior team members. So I don't remember like if I had any major conflicts with them. It was just me thinking that maybe my suggestion is not good enough. So yeah, that was the only roadblock that I felt I was having.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Hetal. It was wonderful to learn about this experience of yours.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Hetal. You're very brave. You're the first person doing mock interviews online on YouTube from the entire class. Well, from any class I ever taught. So that's great.
Thank you so much.
How do you feel it went?
I felt it was good, but I believe that if I could include a little more details about the kind of solution that I proposed in terms of like the technical aspects, and like if I could be a little more specific, I think that could make my answers better. Yeah.
Okay. Sonal, as the interviewer, who also we talked about different things that we are looking for. How do you feel it went, or what's your evaluation?
So I felt that Hetal was, I felt her initiative. I sensed that she was proactive and showed her initiative in sharing an opinion that she had and proposing that. So as she mentioned that her team lead creates an environment where people are inclusive to sharing their thoughts and opinions, and she actually stepped forward and shared something. So that was very brave of her. And I could see herself, if she was in my team, that she would speak up and be vocal and we could solve problems together. In terms of maybe going into details, it would be interesting to know what tool was used, just to see if that's a tool I may use in my team. And it just gives me more insight into her more of her technical aspects as well. And in terms of learning about if she faced any roadblocks or had to do any conflict resolution, I felt like in her team, the environment was inclusive. So she shared her opinions, and because there was a deadline, it wasn't implemented at that time, but she was successful in convincing her team lead that they were able to use it for the next feature or next release. So while she didn't have to jump through hoops in conflict resolution, I think it was part of her team dynamics, her proactiveness, that she was successful in speaking up and getting her opinions heard.
Yeah, I think it was quite good. One thing that I think we all talked about is maybe the lack of detail and vagueness. So this is why it's important to prepare the stories in advance. For example, when you start with the story and suddenly you remember, oh, it's under NDA, I cannot share this, I cannot share that, then if you have the stories in advance, then that's easy because you just don't pick a story that you cannot share. Now, so having like maybe 4 or 5 stories, I'm sure there is some stories where you can share a bit more details. That would be quite good. So that's maybe one thing. A second thing is going back maybe to the vagueness. One thing that's really helpful is when doing like mock interviews, to go and practice the STAR, situation, target, action, result, as a way to respond. Sometimes it's very easy, especially in a real interview, even though, an online interview is also quite stressful. In real interviews, it's easy to kind of just get lost in your words. So to know, am I describing the situation? Am I describing what was my target? Am I describing what I did? Am I describing my result? Like, where am I in this stream of kind of conscience, this stream of words that I'm saying? That's like really helpful to kind of anchor yourself and not get lost, and also be a bit more focused. I think those 2 things, going back to the preparation and going back to using a more kind of structured way to answer a question, both of them are just a matter of just practicing. So it's just doing more of those. I think overall it went quite well. And thank you, Hetal, for that. I appreciate it. And as I mentioned, you're the first one ever did it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So now we're going to go to the second, which is not as brave, but still. So, okay, so Sonal will know what will happen now, and we will see if being an interviewer for the first time, before being an interviewee for the first time, would help her. So, Sonal, if you can turn the sound, turn the audio down so you cannot hear us, and I will give you a thumb up once we are ready to go. Okay? So you've seen how it looks from an interviewer's side. Now we'll talk about how it looks from the interviewer's side. Okay? So the first thing is I'm going to give you the question that you're going to ask. Usually, an interviewer would want to be an expert at a certain question just to see how different people respond so they can calibrate themselves around a certain question. So the questions often repeat themselves. So I'm going to give you a question. Your question is, can you recall a time when a project or a task was failing or off track due to unforeseen challenges? How did you identify the issue, and what steps did you take to course correct and achieve a successful outcome? Okay? So this is another facing a challenge. The first challenge was the one that we talked, maybe more kind of the technology or the decision. This one is different. This is something going off track, which everybody had that. Then what a person does when something goes off track. Okay? So now I'm going to, so the way that it's going to work is you will ask, you will do a quick kind of icebreaker, just to build rapport, just to make sure that this other person is not completely stressed out before you ask him the question. Then you're going to ask the behavioral question. Remember, the behavioral question is not about you, it's about the other person. So it's very, very important to be an active listener, because what you're trying to do is to evaluate the other person and how they reacted to a situation, right? It's not you reacting, it's they are reacting. Then don't interrupt if possible. And ask follow-up questions for clarity. What you want to make sure is to extract what's called like signals from this interview. What are signals? Signals are things that tell you that this person is going to be a good software engineer working together in a team, or maybe there's going to be some challenges. Those are the signals that you're trying to extract, okay? So ask follow-up question as much as you need. Maybe it's probably going to take something around 5 minutes, 7 minutes, something along those lines. Just ask till you're like, okay, I got it. Now, take notes. This is important. In real interviews, you need notes to prove your point. And it's also important for you because sometimes you don't really remember also like the dimensions that you're evaluating that person. Now I'm going to give you a couple of dimensions, at least that I thought about. Now, those dimensions, they may or may not be 100% what you want to ask about, but here's a couple of things that I put together, okay? What would I be looking for? The first thing is problem identification. We talked about something going off track. Does this person actually understand why it went off track? Like, what was even the problem? Or they're just kind of dealing with the symptoms? Let's say when something goes off track, let's say releases are buggy. There could be, what is the root cause of this? Does this person actually understand what was the root cause of the issue? Okay. Were they able to identify it quickly, accurately? How did they identify the problem? So that's one big thing, right? Because there is a problem. Does this person identify the problem, or somebody just said this is the problem? They're just gonna take the word for it. Okay, which is maybe less depth. The analytical skills. Okay, again, there's a problem. How did they identify the causes of the issue? Okay, did they done like metrics or research, or how did they do that? And most importantly, how do they identify the difference between symptoms and root cause? Again, system going down could be a problem in testing, could be a problem in release cycle, could be many things. What makes them think that they actually found the problem that caused the symptoms of something going off track? Okay. So this is maybe something that I would look for. Now, we want to do that they have the ability to make decision-making, prioritization, how do they prioritize, the investigation of the problem. Assuming something goes off track, it might be some kind of time constraints. So were they able to find it? And what decision-making, was that based on maybe data or instinct? And, if it was instinct, what makes this person believe that their instinct is right here? Maybe they had experience before, maybe they had a similar problem before, or maybe they just kind of felt like it. I mean, I don't know. We want to see how this person finds a problem. We want to make sure that this, again, what I would look for, how this person adapted, were they flexible when something goes wrong, how did they change things, did they took into consideration what change actually means here, okay? And also, how do they handle pressure? If there was a pressure in the situation, for example, people working late night because there is this problem, how this person reacted to this, again, as part of a team. And going back to team, we also want to make sure that how this person asks for help, especially help for maybe more senior people or other people that can help them. Is this collaborative? Is this based on relationship? Is this something that can actually work in a reasonable software engineering environment? And are they actually open for alternative solutions? Sometimes there is more than one solution, so they're open to hear about that. We want to learn about the actions and the initiative, what steps they took, and are they overall like proactive, or they're just passive in a situation, just wait for the manager to tell them what to do, okay? When we're talking about outcome, when we're talking about results, there is two things, right? First was, what was the result, like the actual result? Was the project on track? Were they able to bring it on track? But the second result is what they learned from that. And what they learned from that is what they learned from that about themselves, maybe how they should do things in the future differently. And also, what did they learn about the system? How maybe the system should do things differently. For example, if there was, let's say, a quality issue, what did they learn from that to prevent the next quality issue? Okay. And this is another quite important when something goes wrong, responsibility and accountability. Do they own this problem, or at least owning the fact that this problem needs to be fixed. There is, well, maybe owning is not a good term, accountable for fixing it. Owning means, you know, you own it, it's just you. Accountable means you're accountable for that, and sure, you can leverage other people, that's perfectly fine, but you're accountable for the outcome. How do they dealt with mistakes? If there was like postmortems or something in the company, how did they handle with that? So as you can see, there is, in this list, I gave you many different ideas of what to look for, how this person, based on their past experience, would perform in similar situation in the future. And there is always situation where things go wrong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite Sonal back and Sonal back, and you will take care of it. You'll be the interviewer, and then we'll do the same thing that we've done when you were the interviewee. Do you have any questions?
No, I'm good for now. Yeah.
Okay, and
Thank you.
remember, this is for you. You don't need to be rigid. This is for you. Imagine you're like the hiring manager, and you just try to find out, is this person a good candidate for my team or not? And more importantly is, what are some elements that might concern you or not? In real life, you might have multiple interviewers. So if, for example, you highlight something, other interviewers can also take a look into that dimension. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
I'll thumb up and then be quiet. Sonal already knows how it works because she interviewed you, and then we'll do that.
Hi, Sonal. How are you doing?
I'm good, Hetal. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Would you mind introducing yourself to the team?
Sure. So I am a graduate student at California State University Fullerton, mastering in computer science. And along with that, I am a software engineer with 4 years of experience working in the industry. I started off with a company called Sage, and I am currently with a company called Dassault Systems. And alongside that, finishing up my part-time master's with an expected graduation date of May 2024.
All right, all right. So the first question that I have for you is, can you recall a time when a project that you were involved in was failing due to some unforeseen challenges? And what do you think went wrong in the project? What actions you took to fix it, and what consequences it brought?
Sure. So during my master's in computer science, I was involved in an independent team project, cybersecurity-based team project with the computer science department. And this project was being advised by Dr. Mikhail Goffman, and it was also partnered with Disneyland Resort. And the goal of the project was to build a solution that automates the deployment and hardening of virtual machines. And this was a year-long project. So it started in fall 2022 and ended in spring 2023. And it was a team project, so it was approximately 10 students. And this was the first time all of us were doing something of this, partnering with a company outside of Cal State Fullerton and building a solution. So requirements were intentionally vague. When during fall 2023, the only thing we were described or was informed to us by the Disneyland team was that we needed to build a solution that automates the deployment and hardening of virtual machines. And because requirements were vague, us as a team had to figure out how to go about working with Disneyland to figure out more in details what their requirements are, and then build a solution, design the solution, build the solution, and present the solution. And throughout the year, at least in the beginning, in the first semester, it felt like the project was failing, mainly because as requirements were vague, it was taking a lot of back and forth to really understand what needs to be done, what tools we should agree upon, what solution we should design. So the first semester was a lot of unknowns, a lot of questions that still had to be answered. And my role in figuring out and making this project successful was stepping forward and trying to communicate with the Disneyland team on what their current technology stack is and what their expectations are from this project. So once we were advised that we should use this tool called Chef, which is an automation platform, once we were advised on using that tool and got to learn more about their internal structure, then I met up with my team and started to design a solution. So I worked with my advisor, Dr. Mikhail Goffman. I was like the leader for Chef. So as my whole team, none of them were experienced in Chef. I was not even experienced in Chef myself. I had to take initiative. I researched Chef's documentation, read some books, did some trial and error on my own computer, and learned Chef myself and started to design a solution, and then presented that solution to my team so we all get comfortable understanding what Chef is and how we're going to go ahead and implement this. Yet, even though the first semester was research and design. And even though Chef was designed, I designed a solution, I communicated with my team, there were still unknowns because the implementation still had to happen. So as we moved into the spring semester and we started implementing the solution, more conflicts started to arise. Our licensing continuously expired every few weeks, and budget was low, so we were working on a bootstrapped solution. And once we identified that this is how we're going to resolve our licensing issue, we will keep our data on a backup platform so we don't lose our work in progress, and then we can reinstall the license and continue our bootstrap solution. So that was one conflict, was working with licensing, but luckily I was able to SSH my work in progress onto our Cal State Fullerton domain, as well as using GitHub, which I proposed to my team that we should use GitHub to store our Chef scripts so we don't lose our work in progress. So that was one way I addressed another opportunity, another way our project could fail was keeping our data secured and backed up. And then finally, as we're implementing, there was one particular evening where I stayed back until 11 p.m. or 12 a.m. with my professor, my advisor, Dr. Mikhail Goffman, and together we were working on actually getting Chef installed on our destination server, and getting Chef Infra Client, Chef Infra Server installed, and actually implementing a solution that deploys a virtual machine and runs a script that hardens it. That way we have one solution working. It shows that we have accomplished something, and it gave our team some more confidence. And once that big roadblock was accomplished, that this is possible, a lot of the team members were, they got their boost in confidence. We all rallied together. We finished the remainder of the requirements and successfully had a solution to present to Disney at the end of spring 2023. And so that was my experience of when a project was failing with many uncertainties, but how I helped my team overcome these challenges and successfully had a solution that we presented to Disneyland.
Okay, so a follow-up question that I have is, you said in the beginning that the client requirements were vague and they were unclear. So did you take any specific measures to handle the vagueness in the client's requirements, or was it like what measures you took, like in general?
So the main approach I took was during our one of our team meetings with the client, I asked our client what kind of tool are they looking for? What kind of automation solution are they looking for? Something that integrates with their current tech stack or something brand new? That gave us some insight. They started to open up of what their current tech stack is, and suggested that we use Chef. And getting that information, we were able to research Chef and come up with a design, and then I was able to present that design to the Disneyland team, get some validation from them, make any changes, and go from there. So it's like an iterative process, kind of getting them to open up of what their current tech stack is, what their current process flows are, and how we could come up with a solution that integrates with their current process flow.
All right. And were there any conflicts when you came up with possible solutions to to this failing project? Like you said that you were 10 people, a team of 10 people. Were there any conflicts involved, or the other people had solutions that you thought might be better than yours? And how did you handle that situation?
There were two solutions that we thought about. One was using Chef and one was using Ansible. And so in this approach, we showed both solutions to the Disneyland team. Another team member knew that Ansible is another automation platform. So in order to come up with a correct direction, a clear direction of which tool to go with, we let the client decide. So we presented both solutions to them and suggested or asked them which one they preferred. And they chose to go with something that integrates with their technology. And so that's how we resolved that conflict, which was to take an objective, but also let the client give us direction in which way to go.
Okay. And one last question is, what was your overall experience like? What do you think that you learned from it? And any key takeaways that you can apply for your next project, maybe?
Yes, this was a very valuable learning experience. The first is how to handle uncertain requirements, which is how to get the client to open up. And I think the Disneyland team knew that, since this was an independent project, they had in their mind to keep it intentionally vague. So we get that learning experience to see how to gather their requirements. But then also it was, on top of that, a great learning experience because it showed how we could learn a new technology on the fly. So I've never had experience with Chef, but this is what the client wants. So how do I rally? How do I research? How do I figure out a design and a solution and present it to them in a 1-year time frame? Was a great learning experience because it showed that I could do that. I could research, design, come up with a solution that a client is proud of.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty much from my side. Thank you so much, Sonal.
Thank you, Hetal.
Hey, Sonal. So thank you for that. I'm going to say my opinion in the end. How do you think it went?
I think it was.
Oh, no, I'm asking Sonal. Sorry, I'm asking Sonal.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
First, we get her opinion.
Okay.
I'm sure you have notes.
Yep.
Okay, so I felt it went well. Having my prior experience of talking to Professor Ite and learning about getting into details, I was able to talk specifically about the tool I used, which was Chef. And I felt like this question was allowed me to share experiences of working with a client and working with a team, and highlights something unique that I did during my graduate experience. So I felt like I shared a nice version to the interviewer and made a good impression.
Hetal, what are your thoughts? were you able to get the signals that you want in order to make a decision? How was your overall impression?
Yeah, I felt it was pretty good. It was definitely better than mine because of a few key points that I have noted down. The first thing is that the answers that she gave, they were very specific. It had all the details for the interviewer to decide if the kind of problem that she was solving and the kind of solutions that she gave, were they both in alignment. So yeah, the details do matter, and the answers were not at all vague. So that was the first thing that I noticed. The second thing is that she said that she used to, you mentioned somewhere that you stayed up late with your professor and you collaborated with your team members to find the solution, which shows that you are a go-getter, and you are hardworking enough to get the roadblocks out of your way and out of your team's way. And the third thing is that you are very good with taking initiatives. And also, you mentioned that you had no experience with Chef before, but then you learned it on your own, which shows that you have the ability to learn any new technology on your own. And then you can also apply that learning to the ongoing project. Yeah, those were the key takeaways from my side.
Cool. Anything to improve?
I would suggest if you could shorten the answer a little bit so that we can save a little more time for the rest of the questions.
Okay.
That would help. Apart from that, I guess it was spot on. Yeah.
Cool. So thank you for that, Hetal. I think that overall it went quite well. Something that I like is the maybe anchoring with like a story or like some facts or like something tangible that you can actually relate to. The fact that I knew what the tool is, I knew what the problem is. I think that was quite beneficial to kind of at least arrange my head around what the story is about. I have the same comment as Hetal, and I'll show some more about the time. It's important to understand when we're going into an interview, the answer, usually, unless the interviewer gets the signals that they need, is a no. So what means is by default, the answer is a no, unless that interviewer thinks that this is a yes. As part of it, when we have very long answers, I think some of them maybe were 4 minutes or even more, you can check it later. We are presenting ourselves with the risk, because if that interviewer doesn't get the signals that they want because they're just out of time, then the answer might just be no. So, and the interviewer in this case, at least the signals that I talked with, were not exactly covered in the conversation. That does not mean that they were not there. Now, the thing is that if we maybe shorten our responses, try to be maybe below 2 minutes, so maybe an answer is somewhere between, maybe 30 seconds to like 2 minutes, then overall in the interview, we have enough time. Remember, an interview is 45 minutes, usually, or something along those lines, 50 minutes, give or take. 5 minutes at the beginning, go for like introduction, 5 minutes in the end. You have like about, maybe 40 minutes. Usually those things get sliced to at least 2 questions. So that means about 20 minutes. So if, let's say, somebody's answering something 4 minutes or 5 minutes, then that's basically like 25% of the discussion time. Now, that means that the other person, if they want to go into depth, then, it's not really, they won't have time. So it's important to understand that this other person is just looking for those signals. So you can answer enough for them to kind of understand, but give them enough time to follow up on things that they maybe want to follow up on. Because you don't know what they want to follow up on. You don't know their team, you don't know the history, you don't know what happened to the last person that had your role. So I think that's something quite beneficial. I think overall it went quite well. Again, as I mentioned to Hetal, that thing is just a matter of experience. I'm sure next time you will know that.
Yeah, sure. Definitely.
So before we finish, maybe to our listeners that are going to see it, because nothing bad happened, what was your experience? How do you think being an interviewer and then have an interviewee, does it give a more complete, maybe or more kind of holistic view of the interviewing process? Do you find it to be beneficial? Did it contribute? And if so, maybe how? Let's go first with Hetal.
Okay. First, I would go with being an interviewee. So when I said that I won't be able to share the kind of tool that the team was using and the tool that I suggested, I felt like I lost a little bit of confidence because I wasn't prepared on that question. So I felt that it's very important, especially for the behavioral section, to be prepared and to be prepared with not only with the questions, but also the kind of follow-up questions that the interviewer might ask. And as an interviewee, I believe that I learned to that being prepared is the best way to ace the behavioral section. And as an interviewer, I got the perspective of what questions, like being on the other side. So I realized that as an interviewer, it's always it's not like every detail that the interviewer wants to know, but it's kind of the approaches that the interviewee took to solve a particular problem. And yeah, so I mean, yeah, that's my experience. Thank you.
Okay. Sonal, what is your experience? You went interviewer first and interviewee second. How did that influence?
So when I was the interviewer first, it was interesting to learn about the signals I should look out for. And as I was interviewing Hetal, those were particular things I was making notes of, and then asking follow-up questions to try to get my answer from Hetal if she did not mention that during her response. And when I took the role of the interviewee, those I started to go into detail. So, right, one thing I could learn is to shorten my responses and have Hetal take the approach of further soliciting some of the responses of the signals she's looking for. And I think with my project being big and many things there were to talk about, I started to share everything, but that's something I could have the conversation evolve as the interviewer asks me some follow-up questions. So it's something I can keep in mind of prioritizing some of my main points that I think she'll be looking for. And then the shorter points, maybe she could ask me that facilitates it. If not, at least I've come across strong with my main points. That way I keep my responses more shorter and concise.
Cool. So we're almost done. One thing I would suggest is doing more of that. We might do it again. We need to see how many other people will be interested in it. I think it's quite beneficial if you have, I'll share the YouTube on the Itaon Software, youtube.com/Itaon Software. So also other people can see. I would highly suggest to solicit feedback, and don't be discouraged. Remember, interviewing is not like something you're born with. It's just something that you practice over time. I can tell you for sure that this is something that at least I've improved over time, and I'm still very similar person, definitely not smarter. So it's just a matter of experience. So just keep on doing that. So I really appreciate you coming and doing that with me. And I'll see you in class.
Thank you, Professor Tay.
Thank you so much.
Hetal.
Thank you, Sonal. Thank you, Professor.
Okay.
Bye.